Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. With your 2026 AEW All In London Ultimate Preview. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, and we are here to break down every single match on the AEW All In London card to prepare you for the company's biggest pay-per-view of the year. In a bit of a surprise, Vintage Chris Vanini will be along for the ride to break down that entire card with the Silver King, but of course, we do have business to take care of first as we get into this episode. The first piece of business being a reminder that the Getting Over Wrestling Podcast
is all about Defy.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave a 5-star rating on Apple, take a little extra time, leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Also, do not forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter and Blue Sky. You will get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send questions and comments into the show as well. On YouTube, you can listen to the show. You can watch full-length video interviews. Hit the link in our profile. You can join our free Slack channel, talk about wrestling all week with Silver King Vintage and the other Getting Overheads. You can find all of it on social media at Getting Overcast. Now, originally, as Silver King was putting this episode together, I was going to give you a bit of bonus content, a TNA lockdown analysis from this past weekend. It was a real interesting show. A lot of stuff happened. Unfortunately, two things are preventing that. First, Vintage joining the show, so it's going to be a longer episode. Figured I would take out any extraneous content. Second, Silver King was not able to finish the program because I was so inundated with my normal job. Let's call it a 9-to-5 shout out and rest in peace, Dolly Parton. But we do have plenty to talk about in the world of AEW. Before we get to it, I should remind you, we already have a WWE episode in the podcast feed waiting for your ear holes. There is also a double ultimate preview for NXT Heatwave and AAA Ola de Calor also waiting in the podcast feed. And that means this coming Sunday, we will have 2 instant analysis podcasts for you. The first, of course, for AEW All In. The second for NXT Heatwave and AAA Ola de Calor. As of right now, I have no idea in what order we will be publishing those episodes. There are a lot of factors that will come into play. Frankly, the idea is that AEW All In would go first, and then once that is over, Silver King will finish watching those other 2 programs and then get those out. But between one being on pay-per-view, the others being readily available, the AAA show starting earlier than the main card of AEW All In, but the buy-in for All In being something that suddenly is must-watch, I'm just going to be all over the place deciding what exactly to do. So TBD, we will give you an update at some point on Sunday, most likely on our social media, which show will be published first. But the idea is before the end of Sunday night, you will have 2 instant analysis podcasts waiting for your ear holes. That is the type of performance-enhancing audio that we produce right here on the Getting Over Wrestling Podcast.
This is such good shit.
Now, we are going to break down everything that happened this week on AEW television, and we're going to dive deep into AEW All In London.
But I'm afraid I've got some news.
These are just a couple quick hitters to get to before we really dive deep into the show. There has been a full court press of AEW in the media this week promoting All In, just like WWE, of course, would do for WrestleMania. As such, there's been plenty that I could cover in this space, just given the variety of interviews. But what stood out most to me were Will Ospreay's appearances. Now, look, ahead of WrestleMania 41 especially, WWE had what many termed a nightmare PR week. It was exaggerated, but it wasn't great. It was not as bad for WrestleMania 42. In fact, it was relatively benign. But while AEW certainly did not have a nightmare week, nothing close to it, in fact, this has probably been the least positive build for them before an All In to date. Some of it came from a couple false reports about WWE early in the week that were meant to paint the company in bad light. They completely backfired. Much of it has been due to comments made by their wrestlers about WWE. And I know they get asked about them because they're the leader in the industry and they have all these interviews and everyone wants clickbait and headlines. But it doesn't necessarily mean you need to say things that will generate those headlines. And most notable from all of them, of course, are Adam Copeland and Will Ospreay, who frankly made an ass out of himself twice. First on Ariel Helwani's show, and then during a British morning show when he bragged about main eventing Wembley Stadium, something The Rock has never done. Now, I'm not going to get into all the details about the Helwani part because it's not worth our time and going back and forth about the specifics of what he said. But as I've mentioned before, Ospreay is not who I would want as my company's ambassador, which is basically what it means to be the top champion. He doesn't look the part, dress the part, or act the part. And every time he opens his mouth, it's a turnoff. The exact opposite was the case for MJF, who was extremely positive, making his media rounds, including on Thursday, when he actually advocated for fans of AEW and WWE to support their companies and not waste time talking about why the opposition sucks. It sounded exactly like a guy who should be main eventing a stadium show. Alas. Finally, when it comes to ticket sales for All In, that is going to become a whole topic. They are at 44,000 distributed as of today's show taping. And I have little doubt that they will wind up announcing 50,000. That way fans can claim that AEW beat either night of SummerSlam and at least one night of WrestleMania. While WWE did severely drop ticket prices for both shows late in the process, especially SummerSlam, they didn't do it as much for WrestleMania. Let's not forget, both shows were domestic. WrestleMania literally repeated a venue in a declining tourism city. And SummerSlam ran 2 nights in the 16th largest metropolitan area in the entire country, whereas London is, of course, international, and it's the second largest metropolitan area in all of Europe. I promise you, if WWE ran either WrestleMania or SummerSlam at Wembley Stadium, you're looking at consecutive sellouts of 82,000 seats each. Zero question about it. Most likely limited, if any, discounts. AEW, they're going to be around 45,000 to 50,000 distributed, not sold, yet they have been giving tickets away with only processing fees needing to be paid for like government workers, and they're doing steep discounts for others. Now, none of this is to underplay the accomplishment of putting upwards of 50,000 people in a stadium for a wrestling show. AEW's success for All In remains incredibly impressive. Even in Texas last year, they didn't hit the number they wanted, but there's literally no company other than WWE and no company since WCW that could achieve this. The issue is not the achievement, it's the exaggeration, the tribalism, and the lack of context around the achievement, which is why I wanted to put all of this in perspective before we break it down. Now, as I mentioned, we will have your AEW All In London Ultimate Preview coming on this episode. Before we get to it, we need to cover a lot of what happened on television this week. And frankly, you would expect that many of the segments from Collision and Dynamite would directly feed into All In. Therefore, we would cover it in the latter segment here on the show. That's not what happened. TV this week was extremely odd. It was filled with these Continental Challenge Cup matches, which I feel like should have been decided earlier. And you watched these shows, Collision was worthless. Dynamite, though, the go-home, it was not awful from the standpoint that there was some entertainment to be had, some quality matches. But from a storytelling standpoint, building anticipation, closing out storylines for matches for your biggest show of the year, it was completely worthless. Luckily, it was only 2 hours flat, but there were people missing entirely. There were feuds that didn't get touched on. And I know there's going to be a Collision, and I think it's taped 24 hours before All In, but it's not like Kenny Omega showing up on Collision to build his final feud with Will Ospreay. I say that. I have not read the spoilers. It's possible he's there, and I'm making an ass out of myself by saying that. I could be wrong. But my point is, it's a taped show. It's 24 hours ahead. Dynamite is your show. It is watched nearly twice as much as Collision, and just they did nothing on Wednesday. It was real weird. 2 of 8 non-Continental Challenge Cup matches this week were storyline relevant. That's 25% on the go-home week for their biggest show of the year. And let me be clear, both matches I gave relevancy credit to, it was the Silver King being nice and flexible. It really should be 0%, 0 for 8. So with that said, let's get into everything that happened on TV, and then we will have your AEW All In Ultimate Preview with Vintage joining the show. On Dynamite, Swerve Strickland beat Jack Perry in the main event. This was kind of relevant. It started last week, and Perry cut a promo on Collision saying kill or be killed, which is absurd. But even more absurd was running the match at all as the final bout of the go-home show for your top pay-per-view of the year. I could not make any sense of this. The fans do seem to get behind Perry when he wrestles, so fair enough involving him and stuff, but man, he is not a legitimate challenger for any of the most important titles. Swerve beat him with big pressure rather easily at the end. Nothing happened after this. No Hangman Page, no further build for what seems to be a trios title match. The show just ended, and there was a main event package. I could not believe it. As I mentioned, there were a bunch of Continental Challenge Cup quarterfinal and semifinal matches. On Collision, Kyle O'Reilly beat Orange Cassidy, another random draw match that just so happened to be between teammates. On Collision, Claudio Castagnoli beat Daniel Garcia via submission. Another random draw match that just happened to be between teammates. This was the best of the night, around 4 stars A-. On Collision, Nigel McGuinness was in the training room, confirming that he withdrew from a title match in Ring of Honor, yet was still continuing to wrestle in this Continental Challenge Cup. Ospreay came in and started mumbling while getting iced, putting McGuinness over as a legend, saying he had more faith in him winning the title than himself winning in the main event. Nigel responded in kind, telling him that he can do what no British wrestler has ever done before by winning a world title in England. I suppose that's true. It's also a title that's existed for 7 years. It's not the WWE Championship, the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, the NWA World's Championship. It is a world title, I guess, by definition, but I mean, what are we talking about? Solid segment if you care about British wrestling. If you did not, it probably meant nothing to you. On Collision, Jon Moxley beat Castagnoli to advance into the finals for the title he already holds. Yet another random draw match between teammates, by the way. And yes, it was the best of the night at 3.75 stars B+. It was hysterical watching 2 bald white guys of similar heights and builds wearing black long tights rolling around like this. Mox kicked out of a stomp and neutralizer after barely beating a 10 count back into the ring. Claudio then kicked out of Paradigm Shift at 1 because of course he did. So Mox hit a stomp and Death Rider for another false finish, only so Castagnoli could pass out in the Bulldog choke. So typical, such an eye roll. Mox beating his own guy clean with that awful choke after kicking out of all of his stuff. Yet another tournament booked to make Mox look strong despite him already holding the championship. For all the LOL Cody wins and LOL Roman win stuff, LOL Mox wins. He's booked identically, maybe worse than both of them because he gets all of these like tournaments and all of these big bookings, yet he still prevails out of all of them, even when the odds are stacked against him. With Cody and Roman, they're mostly beating people one-on-one, you know? On Collision, McGuinness beat O'Reilly to advance into the finals because he's British. He won via submission. So this injured announcer beat the CMLL champion and ran through many of the top competitors in this company at 50 years old. That is what's happening here. We'll come back to this in the Ultimate Preview. On Collision, Willow Nightingale retained the women's title over Maya World, the TBS champion, who was given another title match for no legitimate reason, especially 1 week out from All In. Maya also took an unnecessary loss, if you want to think of it that way. Before the match, Tony Schiavone called Willow one of the great women's champions in company history. She held the title for less than a month and had 0 defenses when the bell rang. Schiavone is the worst commentator in wrestling. It's ruining the broadcast. And by the way, this unnecessary match that was held, Willow injured her hand. On Collision, Divine Dominion squashed 2 jobbers in an eliminator match. The stipulation did not make any shred of sense given these were nobodies. Why should they be getting an eliminator match at all? Why run this? Like, why did this happen on television? On Dynamite, Divine Dominion and Persephone beat Brawling Birds and Maya World. I gave this relevancy credit pretty much out of the goodness of my heart. There was no specific build for these trios, but at least everyone was feuding. The lone women's match on the show made the Collision match even more worthless. It just was unnecessary. Persephone hit World with the title, then beat her with a frog splash. So Maya, TBS champion, underdog, lost consecutive matches going into All In for no reason unless Persephone is getting a title match, which she seemed to want, but was not announced. There is nothing for Maya or the TBS title going into All In at the time we are recording this podcast. There's also no Thekla on the show, by the way. Tekla, excuse me. I always do that because of the TH. There's no Tekla on the show. No Triangle of Madness. Tekla, the most popular women's wrestler supposedly in this company for a 6-month period of time. Really long, successful title reign. Not booked on the show as of the recording of this podcast. On Collision, Adam Copeland and the Young Bucks beat 3 Don Callis family jobbers. Why did Cope team with the Bucks rather than add heat to the feud? Why did they fight Callis jobbers who were previously fighting main eventers in trios matches last week? Why would you have Cope enter first with fans singing his song getting cut off? That way the Bucks could enter. These are all tremendous questions.
You can ask me that 10,000 times, Cole. I'm never going to have an answer for you.
On Collision, Hurt Syndicate and Lee Moriarty beat 3 jobbers. As this match was happening, commentary was crowing about the company's extreme talent level, and yet half the bouts on this show, including this one, featured unsigned, random, underwhelming talent. Syndicate left the ring and walked backstage early because their job was done, so Moriarty finished out the match. This whole alignment with Syndicate and Shane Taylor Promotions, it is a total waste of time. It does not make a shred of sense.
So dumb.
Shane Taylor then talked about this being what greatness looks like. Is it? This is what greatness looks like, Shane? On Collision, Bang Bang Gang beat Shane Taylor Promotions in a trios match that came out of the prior segment when Taylor issued an open challenge. Is this what greatness looks like? Losing every single time you're on this show? This went 10 minutes. It was a total waste of time. Jay White then cut a promo about the trios titles, making it clear there was just going to be a random amalgamation of teams suddenly going after the titles after not giving a single shit about them for months, years, however long. They have been completely irrelevant straps recently. The Dogs also cut a promo on the trios titles during the show. Gabe Kidd angry. The others have not been killers of late, but I guess now that he's back, they're going to be. On Collision, Nick Wayne and Tommaso Ciampa beat Commander and Mike Bailey. You may ask Silver King, why did these teams link up? You may ask Silver King, why did this match happen?
You can ask me that 10,000 times, Cole. I'm never going to have an answer for you.
Now, before we get to the rest of the show, Silver King does need to remind you here at Getting Over,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do as well. For $5 a month, $50 for the entire year, you can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You will get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions whenever a wrestling television show does something so spectacular. We cannot wait to record a podcast. You will also get exclusive news, analysis, editorial posts every week. It's extra content from us to you for supporting our show, keeping us on the air. We would greatly appreciate it. buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Let's officially move in to the AEW All In London Ultimate Preview, and let's officially welcome Vintage Chris Vanini to the show. Chris, it has been a wild week already for both of us, myself in the golf world, you in the college football world. It is quite clear that one season for me, golf, and another for you, college football, is ramping up and just crushing our lives, but we are still here nonetheless, dropping performance-enhancing audio into everyone's ear holes to cover AEW. I want to appreciate you for taking the time out and make sure you could be on this episode.
I just realized while I was watching Dynamite in Scotland that the perfect trip would be going to Ireland for North Carolina TCU on Saturday and then over to London for All In on Sunday. Game on Saturday and then All In on Sunday. That would be the ideal weekend right there, for being honest.
Would it be? Because I'll tell you, if I was going to trek my ass all the way to London or Europe, Scotland, United Kingdom, whatever you want to call it, my goals would not be going to a college football game and a wrestling show.
Well, you do more. I mean, not like a weekend trip, but hitting that in between.
I'd want to go to the Guinness plant. I'd want to get some Irish whiskey. I'd want to go to some soccer matches, football.
Yeah, just get there early. Get there earlier in the week.
Fair enough. All right, look, we have a lot to cover here. And frankly, AEW, we never know what the full card looks like until like immediately before the show, because they will announce matches, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday morning, perhaps even, maybe not, because of course the show is starting the main card at 1 p.m. Eastern, I believe 6 p.m. their time over in England. As we stand right now, though, it is an 8-match main card with a pre-show match. They're calling it the buy-in. And that is exactly where we are going to start. So Tony Khan announced on a media call, not TV, not a social media video for the public, on a media call, that the Trios Championships will be defended on the pre-show in something called a Roulette Royale, which apparently has gauntlet-style rules, but that is not what a Royale or Royal normally is. What I was immediately trying to ascertain is how a Roulette Royale differs from a Casino Gauntlet, which is already happening on the show. It might be an elimination match, but if it is, does everyone start in the ring? Does there need to be 6 falls, one for each team, or does one guy need to get eliminated and then that's it? Is it over the top rope until the final 2 teams? You cannot just name a new stipulation and not explain it. But to my understanding and everything I could research and find, that's what happened here. And to me, that's infuriating. Now, making it even more confusing is that 7 teams will be involved. So 21 people total, even though 21 is for blackjack and has 0 meaning for roulette. So this was just astounding to me on many levels. And since it's a buy-in match, even though it sounds more important than many on the card, let's go ahead and start here. So the Trios Championship, Hangman Page and Brodito, the champions, defending somehow against Bang Bang Gang, the Dogs, the Demand, Death Riders, Conglomeration, and a wild card trio. Mind you, none of these teams have done anything to deserve this opportunity, particularly considering many of them have recently lost opportunities at the title or lost random non-title trios matches on TV. And you have like a real trio that exists, the Rascals, who are not even part of this match. All of them, though, except for the Rascals, are getting a shot here, which, just like the Casino Gauntlet, is kind of an indictment on the booking concept of just throwing people on a card because you can't book and develop storylines for talent. Even more mind-numbing is that Hangman, who AEW supporters have tried to call the main character of wrestling, quote unquote, the future of AEW, even though he's a 2-time champion, he went from main eventing this show last year to appearing on the buy-in, holding a Trios Championship he just recently won in one of the company's worst divisions, given it can go months at a time without booking anything notable for it. Can you imagine Cody Rhodes going from finishing his story against Roman Reigns, which is the equivalent of what happened with Hangman, to teaming with Damian Priest and R-Truth on a pre-show? And it was not even announced on the Go Home Dynamite in the final segment, which involved Swerve. It was announced off TV during a media call. Can you imagine the reaction if WWE threw something together like this involving major names without there being a unique injury reason, which is what happened with Gunther and Seth Rollins? And they did it on the pre-show, not the main card, at least like this year as an example. So now look, it's quite obvious what's happening here. Swerve is going to lead the wild card trio, which will likely be filled out by New Day, Daybreak, whatever name they wind up choosing. And while there is no information about the match format, since AEW has recently been running its final buy-in matches into the main card as an effort to generate pay-per-view buys, debuting New Day early in the match or immediately before it crosses over into pay territory, it's an effort to juice those numbers. I don't necessarily hate that idea. Buy now to see New Day compete in their first AEW match and possibly win a championship. But it doesn't change the fact that Hangman, Swerve, and Jay White, among others, were not booked in a way that they had a top-level match at All In, or were at least involved in the Casino Gauntlet, which is going to crown a number 1 contender for the AEW Championship. 2 of those 3 that I just named, Hangman and Swerve, have been champion. Jay White, many people believe, should be an AEW champion at some point. They're not competing. But like Commander, Mike Bailey, Mark Davis, they're all competing for a number 1 contendership on the main show. This also doesn't change the fact that New Day will likely debut on a pre-show after Motor City Machine Guns debuted on Collision in Detroit and have not been seen since. So, am I excited for this match? Not really. Am I excited for New Day showing up and what that might mean and how the crowd will react? Absolutely. But Vintage, I know that this is probably new information to you because it just happened before you joined us here for the show. Am I wrong that this is not convoluted as hell?
It is convoluted as hell. Could have called it blackjack or something.
Right. If it's going to be 21.
21. I think that would have made sense. You don't need doing two different casino matches is kind of confusing. And while you were talking, I actually decided to look this up. Your point about Hangman main eventing, winning the show to being a pre-show tag team thing beforehand. WrestleMania 27, The Miz beat John Cena to retain his title, as we remember. And 1 year later, WrestleMania 28 in Miami, The Miz was in a 12-man tag team match, a 6-on-6 Raw versus SmackDown. So Hangman Page is The Miz.
But don't forget, right? That was The Miz, who never should have been in that main event in the first place. And no one was calling him the future of WWE. This is antithetical to that. Well, he does. Yeah, he did at the time, for sure. Because he beat John Cena in the main event of WrestleMania, quote unquote, right? But this is real.
No quotes. He did it. But
he did, yes. But this is like real, and this is the sports-based presentation where the matches matter and the results matter. And you have Hangman, who they did a great storyline. It was a takeoff, of course, of what WWE did with Cody and Roman. But they went through all this effort last year to crown this guy in the main event. And this is where he is a year later.
I mean, I'm not as hung up on that specific part just because, like, guys move up and down the card. And, you know, like Kyle Fletcher's on the way up or something like that. Like they have a lot of top guys in this company, and I think that's a credit to what they've been able to do. My larger issue is just generally with the idea of a trios division. I don't like it. AEW's had it for a while. It's been a thing in the past, I know. WWE, I don't think, has ever done it, or at least never done it in modern times. It just kind of, it gets a little bit convoluted. It waters down your tag team division, and AEW's tag team division has not been the same ever since they created the trios division.
Exactly
a few years
right.
ago.
Yep.
And my New Year's resolution for all of wrestling, for WWE and AEW coming into this year, was fix tag team wrestling, make it big again. And WWE is 100% not doing that. They do not care.
Right.
And so we know AEW can do it, but they've just got so many guys in trios stuff that it makes it more difficult. This is so confusing what this match is going to be, but it's a pre-show thing. We don't need to go too long on this one.
We don't,
because ultimately the point is, we believe likely New Day is going to show up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with the idea of them showing up on a free thing. People see it, then they go to it.
Me too.
Then they,
yeah.
I understand the strategy. I think it makes sense. So I'm assuming it's them. I'm looking forward to it and seeing how it goes.
I don't know that it's going to result in an increase in buys because New Day shows up. They're popular. It's not Roman Reigns. You know what I mean? Like they're past 40, well past 40, and people have seen them for decades in WWE. They're not coming back after a long layoff. It's just like, it's cool is what it is. I wanted to quickly address the other point you made about AEW having the opportunity to actually do something with the tag team division. That is 1000% true. They have improved their tag team wrestling to a degree over the last few months, but if they can actually get Motor City Machine Guns on screen, you have them coming in, possibly New Day coming in. And there's duos in this match of trios that are more than capable of being extremely talented tag teams, putting on incredible matches in this company. The problem is, why are they all focused here on the trios division randomly when they're not set established trios who have been wrestling those types of matches aiming to grab the title for an extended period of time? AEW has a lot of trios matches on screen. A lot of times they're just meaningless. They just happen. So there is a huge opportunity here. It is a little weird that if New Day does debut, it seems like it's going to be in a trios match with Swerve, which is like, yeah, they did have a relationship in WWE, semi-close from my understanding. But like, why is that the trio exactly? Right. Kind of curious to find out, are they a new group? Is it just for this and they win the titles and then they dissolve and it's just, it was comfortable and easy for them to do? I do have that wild card team winning, and that's my prediction, Vintage, but that's kind of where I stand.
Yeah, like in theory, you would have thought, hey, New Day as a tag team debut, kind of like the Hardy Boys when they came back at
Right.
WrestleMania.
At
Which New
33.
Day introduced them.
Yeah.
But it's in a trios match, so it's going to be a little bit different. But
Yeah,
is what it
precisely.
is.
Is that your prediction as well, that they win the trios
Yes.
titles?
Yep.
Cool. And I know we said, like, hey, why maybe we shouldn't spend much time on this. To be frank, there's some other matches that have so little build, there's not even a lot of time we're going to be spending on them. And one of them is the Women's Tag Team Championship, Divine Dominion, defending those titles against Brawling Birds, who are British. And that has been the build. Like, the Birds never really earned a number one contendership. They wanted the titles randomly after kind of going away from focusing on them and wrestling singles for a while. Came back together. They're like, no, we want those titles, by the way. They didn't beat a bunch of teams or a notable team to earn the number one contendership. I think they, if memory serves, they won a trios match. And then I think the other person in the match actually got the fall there. And then they were granted a number one contendership against Divine Dominion on the show. We have known that this match was going to happen, I want to say, for 6 months. And they still didn't build a feud through storyline to get there. They're in England, in Wembley Stadium. One of the two members of the Brawling Birds, obviously Jamie Hayter, is the standout. Alex Windsor is the other one. And I don't mean to like denigrate her, but she's not as talented as Hayter. She's the wife of Will Ospreay. There's an opportunity for both of them to leave this show with championships. And that is precisely what's going to happen. They're going to put the Brits over Divine Dominion, and the Brawling Birds will walk out as champions.
That's my pick as well. I mean, Divine Dominion, they've had the title since March at Revolution, over 160 days as champs. Like, that's good. And there's only been two champions of this belt, and the previous group, Babes of Wrath, held it for 95 days. So when you have kind of relatively long-term champs, it makes it even more when the other team wins. Should there have been more building of the Birds? Yes. But I also think Divine Dominion have been built strong in a way that it's going to be meaningful when they lose here.
Yeah, they've absolutely been built to look dominant, and that is a huge positive. The only negative really with this division is they built up the women's tag team division extremely well to get to that tournament and crown the first champions. And they still had some teams left over when that was done, and therefore Babes of Wrath were able to have multiple defenses against legitimate teams and really solidify that these titles mean something. And then when they lost to Divine Dominion, the division just disappeared. Like, the team stopped fighting, and when they did, they were just losing. And Divine Dominion, while they have defended the titles a few times, only a couple of them have been against actually deserving opponents, and even them, they've run through. So, yes, they have been built well as a team. The division has not been built well. Brawling Birds winning here maybe opens the door for some more competitors. That would be interesting, and I wouldn't be surprised if Divine Dominion kind of wins these titles back, 2-3 months, something like that.
Well, the other part of that is, when do you think Megan Bayne does the real singles thing? Because
I'll tell you this, and I've said this on the show many times. I think she's the B-side in her own team, and like, she's supposed to be the big dog. I think Lena Cross, her partner, is the potential star women's champion for this company. I just think she's more athletic. She's a better talker. She has the whole package. Megan has the headdress, and that's pretty much it as far as I see it.
She's got the look, but the look isn't everything.
Not
so
everything.
We'll see.
It's not. TNT Championship, Kevin Knight defending against Darby Allin in a Falls Count Anywhere match. There are not many stipulations on this show. I mean, we talk all the time about how AEW gets hardcore and they focus on blood and they do all this crazy shit. This is the only match with a stipulation like that. So on one hand, kudos to AEW for pulling back and realizing, hey, we can put on a really high quality wrestling show. And yeah, we can still show blood in other matches without there being a hardcore stipulation, and not inundate your fans, your audience, with one hardcore match after another, just trying to, make headlines for how disgusting and nasty they can be. They're saving it for a guy in Darby Allin who's willing to go to crazy lengths against a real young opponent and a champion coming in Kevin Knight, who has been one of the most impressive new performers in the company this year and has a chance to win a Getting Over award in a few months, aka
the Meaties.
Yeah, so Knight has been super impressive. And while I don't have any go home to give you for Knight and Allen, because they didn't do anything on Dynamite, and really the last, I want to say 2 weeks, it's mostly just been taped promos and no, major happenings. Despite that, there is a built-in storyline. Knight attacked Allen after he lost the AEW championship. And Darby was out for a short period of time, came back, attacked Kevin. And there's an actual rivalry feud here that makes this frankly, one of the matches I'm anticipating most on this show. I think it has a chance to steal the entire show. It's not going to be the best match on the program, but it has a chance to be 2 or 3, and it might surprise some people. The question is going to be, of course, who walks out with the championship? And that's a tougher call. But if you just had Darby as your AEW champion, the top guy in your entire company, and you're giving him a stipulation that leans toward his strength, you're also at your biggest show of the year, and you want a big babyface pop. I think Knight's been doing a great job. I actually think he could level up to a title slightly beyond this, giving Darby another championship coming after that AEW title run. He's comfortable with the TNT title. He can go on a long run with it, have a bunch of really good matches, which people really care about. I think that's probably the move, but I will not be hurt by any means if Knight wins. Him going over Darby and being established as someone who beat another AEW champion and is totally legit in this company, that's a positive outcome as well. But on a show like this, I believe title changes are the name of the game, and I have Darby beating Kevin and becoming the TNT champion.
I got to wonder, is Darby Allin going to do a coffin drop off the giant arch that's over Wembley Stadium or something?
He might want to.
I know.
I don't know that.
Want to credit though, Falls Count Anywhere. Like,
yes.
One of the best stipulations. Like, we always talk about it. WWE does way too many street fight or I quit or last man standing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Falls Count Anywhere is just so much more fun. It's so much more creative, and it opens up a lot of different possibilities. So that's another reason I think this match will be really good. I'm with you in just like really not knowing which way to go, because it's going to be a lot of title changes on this show, but probably not every title.
Mm-hmm.
So what are ones that maybe don't? Do you want to put over the guy who was your champion recently on your biggest show? Would make a lot of sense. Would further him there. Or do you want to keep putting over the big new guy?
Mm-hmm.
It could go either way. I'm going to go Darby as just kind of the babyface wins, but really could go either way.
Tag team championships will be on the line. Cage and Cope defending against the Young Bucks. Christian came out following the aforementioned irrelevant trios match I discussed earlier, running down the Bucks as being beneath them, saying they may be influential, but they are not legendary. The crowd was singing "Hey Baby" the whole time he was talking, basically ignoring his words. The Bucks countered that they may have had matches and shows named after them, but they were responsible for a company name, not just the name of like TLC, basically, is what they were trying to say. Cage low-blowed Matt and got super kicked by Nick, who was speared by Cope. Would have been fine if there was any legitimate heat to this feud, but there's just not. Beyond that, not having a TLC-style stipulation for this match, it's a major head-scratcher given the age of Cage and Cope. I remain surprised that this wound up being the title bout for All In. It seemed obvious that it was going to be a triple threat with FTR, and they would probably run that stipulation. But since FTR is not on the show at all, perhaps what they said in their Step Away promo was accurate. There's actually something going on, either personal or health related, and therefore they couldn't be here. And if so, maybe it changed plans from being a triple threat, which would have been an AEW epic style match because they would have been able to do TLC but with their own guys, to just 2-on-2. But for me, that was even more reason to have thrown in New Day, Motor City Machine Guns, and maybe another team into this match, because this, for me, frankly, is not at all compelling. Either result is a head scratcher. Like the Bucks, who are the top team in AEW history, putting over Cage and Cope and allowing them to show that they are legends as a tag team and they can drop the title in a multi-team match later without taking the fall. That unnecessarily elevates former WWE guys who people will always remember for being in that company. Cage and Cope losing the titles to AEW's top team, it's them passing the torch to a degree to other 40-year-olds, and it's them doing it like to a team that they've never wrestled before, or if they have, it's only been in multi-team situations. It's not at the end of a long feud where they finally say, okay, enough, like you guys got the best of us. So the match for me is not compelling. And on top of that, it's probably the only match on the card where I really have no idea who's going to win Vintage.
Well, I mean, I don't, the previous match we just talked about, I don't know either, but I think, like, I don't even think this is, God, like, what are the chances this is even like a good match? Like up to AEW standards.
I mean, the Bucks can really carry people. Like, I am not a fan of their wrestling. People love them. I do respect their ability to wrestle quality matches, especially with older competition. So I do believe it'll be more than fine, maybe even super exciting. And they'll allow Cage and Cope to like lean on what they can do versus try to match what the Bucks can do. But is it going to be anywhere near one of the best matches on the show? Absolutely not.
I was looking through the previous all-ins, the big ones, and trying to, hey, did the Bucks have they never won here? Like they lost last year in Texas, the show I was at. They lost to FTR at the first one. They did win in the second Wembley one in 2024 when they beat the Acclaimed and FTR. So like they have won at Wembley before. So it's not really like, oh, the Bucks have never done it. Give them that chance at Wembley. We don't know. Do we? How much longer Copeland plans to go? Like my thought here is, are they dropping it to the Bucks, sign of respect to legendary teams, and then the Bucks will eventually try to help kind of build up that tag team division again, as we said, and drop it to somebody there. This is where, again, like having one or two more teams in this would have been much more compelling for that reason. But yeah, I mean, it's two legendary teams, two of the greatest tag teams of all time, wrestling in a big stadium show. That significance is cool. Yeah, it's cool that we're actually getting this. It was 25 years ago, TLC at WrestleMania 17, when Edge and Christian won that match, and so give these guys this moment in the spot. It should be cool. We'll see how I feel afterward.
That's why I was so convinced they were going to use a version of that stipulation for this match. I figured you had that the the 3-team match, right, for TLC, and what was it? Dudley Boys, Edge and Christian, and the Hardys, right? FTR, Young Bucks, and Cage and Cope are like the equivalent in terms of the most important teams in AEW. So I thought it was a no-brainer for them to run that. And if you couldn't get FTR in there, you could pick another top quality team, maybe even Motor City Machine Guns, obviously, who just joined the company, and yet they're not doing it. This is what I'm going to say. All Out is, I believe, a month away. Like, that is still a big show, and they're going to be going head-to-head with a WWE show in the same market, Chicago. For that reason, I have Cage and Cope retaining the titles here. Going into that show, we get the multi-team match that we expected at All In, and that's where they lose them, probably without being pinned, possibly without a pinfall happening if it ends up being a ladder match. So that is the prediction. Cage and Cope retain here, lose in a month.
Ooh, I could see that. I could also see them losing and then still being part of a multi-team match.
Absolutely possible.
Or maybe even the Bucks drop it to whoever the third or fourth team is. But I'll just say Young Bucks just to do it differently.
Yeah, because we're going to be the same probably on a lot of these. Continental Challenge Cup Final. Jon Moxley against Nigel McGuinness. Now, technically, Mox is not defending the Continental Championship because it was put up for grabs in a not actual blind draw tournament. But of course, as always, Mox came out on the other side in the final, and he is the last champion, reigning champion, whatever you want to call it. Now, look, you can feel however you want about this match. But while, okay, I get it, Nigel is British, he's a part-time wrestler and 50-year-old announcer, taking a substantial spot on this card from a handful of talent on what the company purports is the strongest roster in wrestling history. McGuinness being in this spot over Hangman, Swerve, Jay White, hell, a story-driven feud with Claudio, who Mox beat in the semifinal, to me, it's nonsensical. AEW likes to compare All In to WrestleMania. He's taking a WrestleMania spot from someone. And I see people comparing Nigel getting this to Nick Aldis fighting Gunther at SummerSlam. There was an entire layered, extended storyline leading into a non-title match, and Gunther won as a heel. It was also a moment for Aldis because he had not wrestled at all for years, whereas McGuinness just beat a ton of people, including at least one person he should not have. It has actually created a lose-lose situation here. Nigel wins, and it's ridiculousness. He prevails only because he's British, and Mox gets knocked down a couple pegs. Mox wins, and the entire Continental Challenge Cup was a waste of time just another LOL Mox prevails scenario. Now, AEW could do something interesting. Like, let's say have Ilya Dragunov debut after the match, challenge Mox, and suddenly win the title, which would at least turn something frustrating into something exciting. But that's literally the only idea I have to make this worthwhile in the end. Anyway, as far as a prediction, considering there are 2 other spots on the cards where Brits are likely to win titles, this feels like one where McGuinness can give it his all, he can go out on his shield, and yet Mox retains. Because he really cannot be beaten on this show, ending his dominant Continental title reign 12 months after it took half the company helping a top-tier guy in Hangman to beat him in the main event. How could you go from needing all that against you to lose the main AEW title to losing to a 50-year-old announcer? I don't see it. Mox retains, regains, whatever you want to call it, the Continental Championship.
I'm with you on all that. Like, it's different when the story is Nigel McGuinness kind of going through a tournament and beating guys. I mean, this would have been a great spot to do a title versus career stipulation. You know, if Nigel was about ready to hang it up, maybe he's not. But yeah, it's just kind of like, I don't know, like neither win is that exciting. And so your theory of does Dragunov come out, maybe he doesn't challenge him, maybe they just go face to face.
Sure, that too.
Would be something, would ease the sting. I remember, I think it was the first All In, they showed the now Mercedes Moné in the crowd, but she didn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't part of anything. So it's always possible. I'm going to go Moxley retains just because pick some heels to win somewhere here.
It also is more sensible. He's fighting a 50-year-old announcer. Like, if you had to figure out which one's more likely, Mox retaining or winning, whatever you want to call it, is more likely.
And of all the people on the roster to lose to the 50-year-old announcer, Mox would be like the last guy.
Right. It wouldn't make a lot of sense. International Championship, Kyle Fletcher defending against Konosuke Takeshita and Kazuchika Okada. Callis backstage said he expected his alpha athletes to run the play as called. Getting into bloodline terminology there, Don. Fletcher said he trusts Callis and is willing to run the play, but he wondered whether Okada would do the same. Kazu came in saying family was most important, he could be trusted, and Kyle was being selfish. This is such a weak build for the number 2 men's title in the company. 3 tremendous athletes and in-ring wrestlers, but all of it revolves around Callis. One of the 3, Fletcher, can actually cut a promo. Takeshita has barely been involved in the build because he was wrestling the G1 over in New Japan. He already had his match after extricating himself from the family, and he won the title, yet he's still involved in this, which is super frustrating. So if you look at the 3 people involved, you have Fletcher, who while holding this title was trying to go after the main AEW title, again, on its own frustrating. You have Takeshita, who beat Okada, and it was awesome, but then immediately almost lost the title to Fletcher, which was frustrating. You have Okada, who has not done anything since losing the title to Takeshita, and now all 3 of them are involved, with Fletcher and Okada in the same faction, and Takeshita the former member of the faction. There is no momentum behind Takeshita, a babyface, to win. Fletcher or Okada, it's pretty much the same side of the coin. You would assume that the winner takes advantage of, Takeshita potentially, like, his offense. So Takeshita does all the work and knocks out either Fletcher or Okada, and the other throws the other person out of the ring, pins, and gets the title. Like, that's the way I see this going. I have no doubt that it's going to be an incredible match. These are 3 of the best workers in AEW. It has a chance to steal the show. I don't know that it will, but it certainly could, because we've seen Takeshita Okada be great, Fletcher, Takeshita be great. I forget if we've seen Fletcher and Okada, but it feels to me like that is what is being set up here. Fletcher and Okada for the title. And the best way to do it is probably to have Fletcher take Okada, throw him out of the ring, or have Okada take, I want to flip back to what I was trying to say. Okada take Fletcher, throw him out of the ring, steal the title from him, enraging Kyle, possibly leading to him leaving the Callis family, because for some reason, these people all have to fight each other, and then maybe even turning babyface and taking the title from Okada. So for all that to happen, I have Okada winning the International Championship here. I have a feeling that if there were odds, if we looked at the odds, Fletcher retaining would probably be the highest on that list, and Okada would probably be the lowest winning it. but I think you want a surprise, something unexpected. That to me is the most unexpected outcome.
It does feel like the main thing that needs to happen in what's going on with these guys is Kyle Fletcher leaves Don Callis. That is the thing they've slowly kind of been getting to.
Mm-hmm.
And, does it happen in this match, or are you just running the same thing that happened with Takeshita? I think it's possible you have Fletcher pin Takeshita, retain, then do Fletcher Okada at All Out, and maybe Callis turns on Fletcher, and that's how that ends. I think that's what I'm going to go with. The All Out being a month later has always been kind of a weird part of it relative to All In. I'm going to say Fletcher retains here. Then that happens, because based on who we, probably are both picking to win the main event, you do wonder at some point, how soon do they want to do Ospreay Fletcher
again,
AEW World Champion?
Right.
Well, yeah, for AEW World Championship,
right.
At one of your biggest shows of the year, that would be the next thing you build to. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, we have the same prediction, just the other side of each other, right?
Yeah,
and I think Takeshita would be, he's super popular. I don't want to say he's the best of the three. Okada's the best of the three, but at this age in 2026, Takeshita is the best of the three. But he hasn't been there. He's the one of the three that has pretty much no new storyline, even though he previously had issues with both Fletcher and Okada. So for me, you put the title on him, it's like womp womp. Like, it's cool, people will cheer because he's a face, but it doesn't mean anything. Fletcher or Okada winning, that means something storyline-wise, especially if you're building to All Out next month. 3 matches left. We're going to start with the Casino Gauntlet. Andrade El Idolo and MJF, they are going to be the first 2 entrants. The winner will receive a number 1 contendership for the AEW Championship. Expected in the match are Tommaso Ciampa, Nick Wayne, Jack Perry, Mark Davis, Chris Jericho, Mike Bailey, and seemingly Commander. And if you go back to what I said earlier about names that should be in this match but are not because they're in the trios match, and then some of the names I just read, Wayne, Perry, Davis, Jericho, Bailey, Commander, Ciampa to a degree, going after the AEW title, having an opportunity at it here, it really does not make any sense. Possible for this match, if he doesn't show up earlier, is Ilya Dragunov. I'm going to assume he's going to be on the show one way or another. I can't imagine AEW wouldn't do whatever possible to sign him, but it's of course possible that he's not there at all. Not expected for the match are Hangman Swerve and Jay White, which, as I said, is absurd. There was go home. MJF entered to Andrade's music on Dynamite, his hair looking the best like it has since the transplant. He was trying to mock what he's all about, calling a woman in the crowd a Scotland 10, who would probably be a 4 in America. He was not wrong about that. Maybe a 5. Andrade appeared next to her, hit him with a microphone, and that was the entire segment. A reminder for all of you. MJF is currently running a one true champion gimmick, like the real AEW championship that CM Punk had, but he's simultaneously willing to compete for a number 1 contendership for that very title. Reminder that Andrade was made national champion, yet he is not defending that title on the show, but rather competing for an entirely different one. Reminder that MJF Andrade would have been the hottest feud on this entire show if it was actually built up, even if it was for the 5th rate championship, instead of them being thrust into another Casino Gauntlet match just to get people on the show. So that's the setup for this match. We don't know what other major names are going to be involved. As such, I can only really make a prediction based on the names I mentioned. And for me, the obvious winner of this match is Andrade. He's hot. He's super over right now as a babyface. You need to strike while the iron is hot. To a degree, AEW has done that by featuring him more, but he's lost his major matches. He won a throwaway championship, and he has not been elevated to a level where you could say, oh, wow, that is someone who, could actually be champion in this company. They've told us he's talented enough to be champion. They haven't shown us through booking that they're willing to put him to that level. Now, MJF, of course, could win as well. And if the babyface Will Ospreay does win the main event, and you're going to have that match at All Out, ideally, you want to have big-time babyface versus big-time heel. But they had a chance to do that here at All In, and they chose not to. They decided to go work rate. And that is where I believe they're going to lean in Chicago. You could still get MJF involved in there and continue the Andrade feud on the back end of All Out. So I have Andrade winning the Casino Gauntlet. I think he'll get an incredible reception if he does. MJF has had his success at All In. He does not need this. He was champion already this year. He can get a number one contendership really whenever he wants it, especially considering he is running the one true champion gimmick. And he can say, no one beat me for this title, or Darby beat me for this title, but it was bullshit. So I want a number one contendership. And if a babyface is champion, Ospreay can say, well, to shut you up, MJF, okay, I'll give you the title match. Andrade needs to earn it. He needs this more than MJF. That's why I'm predicting him to win.
All your points are correct and probably what should happen. But you can't run a one true champion gimmick for that long before it starts to just kind of devalue all of it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to address it sooner than later. I am still stunned, maybe not stunned, but very surprised. No, I'm stunned that it's not MJF as champion versus Ospreay in the main event. And we can talk about that more when we get to the main event.
Will, yeah.
But for that reason, I think MJF wins. You do MJF Ospreay at All Out. Ospreay wins. You shut that whole thing up. Maybe Andrade comes in and costs him or something, and you get back to MJF Andrade one-on-one. But I think that's what I'm picking to happen, just to set up the Ospreay MJF we didn't get here.
I feel that prediction makes a lot of sense. Now, these should be the co-main events, whether they will be. Of course, we'll find out. Women's Championship, Willow Nightingale defending against Mercedes Moné. Mercedes attacked Willow backstage while wearing 6-inch long nails that made it impossible for her to grab her opponent, lift the title, or do anything during this attack, which is why we didn't see the attack, because unless she just pounced her into something, it would not have been possible for her to close a fist, to throw a punch, or do anything like that. Maybe she could have done a forearm. Moné looked great head to toe. Credit to her.
I was up all night.
But it was absolutely ridiculous to be wearing those nails in a situation like this. Completely illogical. The attack was done so Nightingale could sell the hand injury she suffered in the match against World, and she's going to work through it in this match. But this is also all we got from them on the go home, which was hugely disappointing because this was the feud that interested me the most going into All In. And it has disappointed now 2 of the last 3 weeks. I don't understand why. It was hot. They had a legitimate storyline. They still do. And I'm still excited for it. But the go home was frustrating. I believe it was 3 weeks ago was incredibly frustrating. And this should be even hotter than it is. The fact that it's not as disappointing. Furthermore, Willow should have more than one defense over Maya coming into this match. And that's why this prediction, I have it solid who I'm going with, but it is relatively difficult because Willow just reached this career milestone. And to a degree, the women's championship has flipped hands a decent amount this year. Chris Statlander barely had a reign when she had it because they decided it wasn't working. They wanted to go to Tekla. They switched it to her. Willow finally overcomes all this adversity, beats Tekla, wins the title. It's an outpouring of emotion. But now she's going into All In, and she's fighting Mercedes, who is making her second major run at the title, having won the Owen in consecutive years. I believe she's had other opportunities at it as well, and she's never won. Well, how many times is she going to lose the top title match in this company when she's pretty much the top woman in the entire division, given Toni Storm is not available right now? So unless something happens where Toni comes back and, look, the belief with her is that she's pregnant and she's going to be out of action for an extended period of time. That has never been said. It's just that there's a health-related issue and she's not going to be there. So that's why I'm saying, because I don't know whether she is pregnant or not. If she's not, it's in Wembley Stadium. There's an opportunity for that to be this huge moment. She's Australian, but she's kind of connected. She's been connected to England throughout her entire career. She wrestled in the UK for a while. So unless something is happening where like Toni Storm comes in and saves Willow from Mercedes cheating and that breaks off a feud non-title, I don't see any of that happening. I think it's going to be a super clean match with a decisive winner. And even though you generally don't put a heel over a babyface at a huge show like this, what you generally are doing is waiting to crown the babyface at a huge show like this. You're not flipping the title a month earlier. for seemingly no reason. We could have had Tekla and Monet in this spot, and Mercedes maybe even could have been a babyface. So for all those reasons, I have Mercedes beating Willow. Their injury only accentuates the need for them to do that. And beyond all of it, if Mercedes doesn't win here, and she's already won the Owen twice, A, there's nothing else for her to do. And B, when the hell is she going to win the title? You're going to wait for them to be in Boston? None of that makes sense to me. Mercedes emerges finally as the women's champion.
Yeah, you can make a case for both sides, really. It is another one that's tough to pick. Mercedes is, the most popular woman in your company. She hasn't really done as much like super high profile stuff over the last little bit of time. This is a perfect time to put her on the stage if you have WWE fans who are watching, because New Day's there or Dragunov's there or whatever. Sasha Banks coming out on top as champion is a good thing you can sell as a company at your biggest show.
Yes.
I can also see though, like Willow Nightingale is the fan favorite. She has won the title, but like hasn't done something on this biggest stage at that level, I don't believe. So you could like firmly establish her as like one of our top women right here by doing that. So I can see it going both ways, but I'm with you. I'll go with Mercedes.
Yeah, part of the case for Willow is she just won the title, and it's a career accomplishment for her. Yeah. Are you really going to strip it from her that quickly? But again, she hasn't really been given enough defenses where you look at her and you say, oh, this is a super strong champion. And like, she's had a nice run, like with Darby Allin, for example. Darby won the title. He had it for a very short period of time, but he racked up all those defenses. Many of those were a joke, don't get me wrong, but at least he had them. Nothing has really been done with Willow to this point. She just immediately went into the feud with Mercedes. So to me, it seemed like...
that's a good point. Actually, I'm going to flip back to Willow. You
convinced you
me on it.
away from my
Willow
prediction?
Retains.
That's funny that I convinced you away from my prediction. It might be the case, and maybe something happens where they just rematch it all out, and again, they're building it forward one show. But look, to your point, Mercedes made her unofficial AEW debut in the crowd here, and you want the big names to win, and to something that you said, if you are bringing in New Day, and maybe Ilya Dragunov as well, and you're going to have some WWE fans watching who perhaps otherwise would not, giving Sasha Banks, quote unquote, a title win in one of your biggest matches, it makes a lot of sense to kind of keep him and keep him interested.
Looking up, every women's title reign, every World Women's Championship reign since late 2023 has gone for at least 144 days. Toni Storm, Mariah May, Toni Storm again, Chris Statlander, Thekla, all had the belt for at least 144 days. Willow's at like a month.
Right.
So this has been a belt that they are not flip-flopping often. Maybe that means it's time to flip-flop it. I don't know. But she hasn't had like a really worthwhile defense. I think she gets it here. I'm going to pick Willow.
Yeah, completely fair. Now the main event. The AEW Championship, Kenny Omega defending against Will Ospreay. Ospreay opened Dynamite with his sweat still tucked into his socks like a child. He paced the ring while talking about working hard outside wrestling to fly the flag for the United Kingdom, which is where the best wrestle. So now it's the UK where the best wrestle, not AEW apparently. He name dropped a bunch of Brits, then informed that Omega was not in attendance for the Go Home show for the biggest pay-per-view of the year, coming off a heel turn in the final seconds of the penultimate Dynamite. I frankly could not believe my ears that he was not at this show.
I know.
I hate this. I hate this crap. Stop. Stop with the crap.
Shame. Shame.
Ospreay put Omega over as the best in the business, saying he lost respect for him when he mentioned his son. Sounds like thin skin to me. Will promised Kenny would get the Billy Goat, the match of his life, and something that will leave memories because you don't want to F with a man who is looking after a boy. Really weird line. Ospreay said he owes a debt to his family, and it's, quote, time to bring it home, hearkening to similar language that the English use to discuss the World Cup. Then he closed with a great line, saying he was going to prove, quote, heroes are ordinary people who can do extraordinary things. Arguably his best line in the entire feud, maybe one of the best in his entire AEW career. This was an extremely odd promo, especially since it was Solo and left the prior attack as the true go-home for the feud. There was no tying up loose ends with the Death Riders, nothing about Don Callis. Hell, nothing about his prior stuff with Omega, though I guess that part was covered in the sit-down interview that I enjoyed. It just goes to show everything we have been saying about this booking for months now. There was no reason for Ospreay to be with the Riders, no reason for Callis to get involved in the build the last few weeks. All of that was a complete waste of time. And when this segment ended, I felt exactly the same as I did a couple of months ago, believing this match should have involved MJF, either one-on-one or as a triple threat. The Omega heel turn came too late. Fans do not hate him. Out of nowhere, he went from a legendary babyface aiming for a final long run with the title to a heel who completely changed his mindset on a dime, shit-talked a child, and now hates Ospreay. As such, he's hardly a foil for Will, at least not in such a short window. Even worse, Omega has barely been on TV building this match. He's been an absentee champion just like Reigns, except Roman was on TV more frequently on the build to WrestleMania. And for Kenny, it's seemingly for no reason. Like, Reigns has limited appearances written into his contract. I don't believe the same is with Omega, who's an executive vice president. Look, AEW decided to put on the best work rate match possible over any concerns about solid storytelling. I'm not saying there's no storytelling, just that it's not been as good as it could have been. But that's basically the paradigm of what this company prioritizes. Even though storyline is precisely why Hangman versus Mox and MJF versus Adam Cole made those main events of All In so well received in the past. So coming into this match, I believe it will be the match of the night. I know Will Ospreay is going to win the championship. At the same time, Vintage, I'm just not that excited about it.
Will Ospreay's going to win. I remember when Ospreay first fully came to AEW, I was saying in the brief times I was doing the show, he's your face of the company. Like, he's your next top guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's time to get to it. And they didn't do it. They didn't do it last year at All In, which ended up being in Texas, and Ospreay was hurt and taking breaks and all that kind of stuff. Okay. Are you able to, kind of in the same way you put off the Cody win the first time against Roman, are you able to keep Will Ospreay red hot another year going into the show at Wembley? And on the Ospreay front, they 100% have. He's still completely over. He's the biggest babyface you got. It's worked. It's here. This is the moment. And instead of leaning into those emotions fully, you're kind of doing the video game thing where you just want your two favorite guys to wrestle each other.
Right.
It's like, it's tough. I also get, Kenny and All In. I mean, he's been banged up a bunch. I don't think has been in a main event of any of these, because you had Adam Cole, MJF, you had Swerve and Bryan Danielson.
Mm-hmm.
You had MJF. I'm sorry, you had Moxley, Hangman last year, and now this. So
this
it's
is his first main event. He had the Okada match last year.
Yeah. Kenny Omega has not had like the main spot at the biggest show for AEW in a bit. So you want Kenny to be in here, okay, but he's not a heel. People love him too much. It's like, could you make the case, hey, MJF has played out a little bit. It's a little bit too obvious. He's always at the top. He's been in main events of All In. Like, yeah, you could, but sometimes predictable things are good. And MJF would have brought the heat into this.
Absolutely.
To get everybody even more excited than they obviously already are. So I think maybe triple threat would have made the most sense if you want to accomplish all of those things. But I also think there's a part of this that goes, hey, everybody remembers the Omega Okada matches and this and that. We want to make our own. We want to do it in the main event of the biggest show. So we're going to give it to these two guys and just let them go. And people will remember that match. Okay. I guess, maybe that's I watch more WWE than AEW in me that feels that way. But yeah.
No, I mean, AEW wanting to put a stamp on and say, we have the best wrestling match of all time on our show, which Like, frankly, it's not going to be, because for me, it's Kenny Omega, Kazuchika Okada 4. It was just perfect. It was storytelling.
Well,
it
and
was
Kenny's,
wrestling.
and Kenny's not what he was.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. If this was 10 years ago and there was a storyline building up to it and it was a rubber match or something like that, then yeah, they could probably do something like that. And by the way, Omega is a top tier big match wrestler. Like, we talk about guys who level up when the lights are on, Shawn Michaels, Roman Reigns, Omega and Okada, by the way, but Omega too, is near the top of that list, not just modern day, all time, when it comes to big match wrestler. So I have no doubt that Kenny is going to give this, if you could, beyond 100%. And Ospreay is primed. He's in the literal prime of his career. And this is Wembley Stadium. It's his moment. I have no doubt that this is going to be incredible, bell to bell, and almost certainly the match of the night, a match of the year contender, maybe the blowaway match of the year winner, even though mask versus mask right now is going to be really hard to topple. I don't doubt any of that. I'm talking about, as a viewer, fan, analyst, whatever, I should be going into this foaming at the mouth for Ospreay to win the title, like we were at WrestleMania 39 and then at WrestleMania 40 for Cody Rhodes. And I don't feel that way.
That's exactly it.
And it's purely because of the booking, the positioning, and their inability to create a storyline that has hooked me. And to what you said and what I've said previously, if you involved MJF here, I'm not saying to exclude Omega. I know you wanted Tony. I know you wanted Ospreay Omega. But if you included MJF, he raises the rent so much because he is a storyteller and he is a pure heel. Omega could be a tweener. He could have still said the same stuff and done the same stuff to Ospreay, but you have MJF as that piece of shit on the other side. You have Ospreay pin MJF, win the title, and then you can have Ospreay Omega where he retains against Kenny rather than beats him. And you could have done it at All Out in Chicago and sold the shit out of that building, or you could have done it at another major show early next year, Full Gear, for example. That's the way Silver King would have booked it. Vintage, I have a feeling you would have done the same. This has a chance to be amazing in Wembley Stadium. The Brit getting a massive pop for winning the title. That's going to be incredible. The visuals are going to be awesome. But it doesn't mean that I'm compelled by this main event. I'm not.
You had a line in there. You should be foaming at the mouth for Will Ospreay to win the title. That's exactly what it should be. And by booking it this way, they made the main excitement point for AEW fans going into this match is how good the match is going to be.
Exactly.
That is what you got. People are excited. I can't wait to see how good Kenny versus Will Ospreay is. When it should be, I can't wait for Will Ospreay to win the championship.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference. That's the difference between the storytelling and the work rate part of it. And if AEW feels like its fans want the first one, okay. But that point describes the feeling I think you and I have going into it, where Will's going to win. He's going to get the big attention and all that stuff. They will crown him face of the company and all that stuff. They're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But going in, the story amongst the people who are really excited about this show is I can't wait for the match, not I can't wait for Will to win.
Is this going to be a 5-star match, a 6-star match? Like, oh my God, is it going to be, generational? As opposed to,
as opposed to Will Ospreay's the face of AEW in this company and all his work to be the top guy at a top American promotion and all that comes with that. And so it really, in the end, takes some of the attention and the moment off of Will going in, though he will get it coming out.
And frankly, too, a lot of it is, I'm a Brit. I'm going to win in England at Wembley Stadium. And that's amazing for Brits. I don't give a single shit about that. I do think it's cool that he's going to do it. But at the end of the day, like, it doesn't affect me. I've never been there. I'm not English. I'm not someone who goes in and cares about what their countrymen specifically achieve. You know what I mean?
The moment a couple weeks ago when you talked about his grandpa dying, and not getting him to see him wrestle at Wembley, I think is what he said.
Mhm.
That was the moment. That's the kind of thing
Yes.
that grabs you, that makes you connect with the person you're seeing on the screen, that makes you root for him, that makes him want to win and do it on this stage. Part of his family couldn't see him. He's got a son now.
Mhm.
What's it going to mean for Will Ospreay? And he kind of said that like in the promo on Dynamite and stuff. Like he has kind of tried to do that, but AEW's general booking of it has not been that connected to him as a person. They've done it a little bit late, but that's really, I think that should be the entrance point.
They also took away
why you want Will Ospreay to win.
They took away so much of his underdog story too, because he comes back from the injury and you're like, okay, now he's going to lose. He's going to build himself up. And like, it's going to be this journey to become number one contender and get this opportunity. And he just joins the Death Riders and they help heal him. Like he's in the pit in Dark Knight. Was it the last one? Dark Knight Rises.
Mhm.
Like he's in the pit. So they just heal him and he goes on and he becomes more aggressive. And you didn't get the journey of like beaten down and needing to claw his way back, not successful. Is he actually going to do it? Is this his last opportunity? What if AEW doesn't run Wembley next year? Is he never going to be able to accomplish this? And then he breaks through at the Owen and he goes on a generational run and he makes his way all the way to this match. Instead, he's working with like the top faction in the company. It's like he joined the Bloodline, for the better part of 3 months. And then he just came out on the other side and he's like, all right, I'm done with you guys. And they're like, okay.
And that's, yeah. And that's, that's probably enough from us on being frustrated going in. It's going to be a great match. It's going to be a great moment.
It will be. Agreed.
Kenny's going to give it all as we thought. And I am obviously looking forward to it. And you and I both think it'll be match of the night.
Indeed. Not only match of the night, I believe it will be a legitimate match of the year contender. I don't even doubt it. I think it'll be top 3 at worst.
It better be.
It better be, right.
That's the point.
Exactly. So yeah, that is our full breakdown of AEW All In London. Before we get out of here, let's provide you with our pre-show expectation grades. Of course, we will provide final grades on our AEW All In Instant Analysis podcast this Sunday. Vintage, as always, when we give grades on this show, you get the opportunity to go first. What is your expectation grade for AEW All In London 2026?
It's hard.
Yeah.
AEW, they've done a good job with All Ins. They've done a good job with the stadium shows. They've done a good job with the production. They've made all of these. It's possible we may have graded them all A's. I have no idea looking back. I just remember coming out of all of them being like,
many, not all. Yeah.
Yeah, I just remember coming out thinking like, all right, like big stadium show that they don't do with the WWE does all the time. It felt at the level it needed to be. I guess I'll go low A then, which like 90, say like
93
94
would be the lowest A.
93. Let's go 93 because we're going to have a lot of title changes that we predicted.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a very impactful show. I think we're going to have several really, really, really good matches. But also a couple I'm like, and several matches going in, I'm like, where I'm not putting it a higher A.
I'm exactly there with you. In fact, for anyone who listened to our prior show on NXT and AAA, I gave both of those 93 expectations as well for completely different reasons. This is going to be work rate heavy in terms of, I think it's going to be an incredible show in ring, but from a storytelling standpoint and a storyline standpoint, I'm just not that captivated by most of it. But I believe the action and the atmosphere is going to carry. And that's the exact reason why I'm at a 93. If there's elements that we're not expecting that they give us, it can definitely exceed that number. If some of the matches don't live up to expectations, it'll certainly fall below that number. But I believe it's a fair grade from you. It's exactly, obviously, where I stand. That's why I agree so much. And it is the way I feel about really all of the shows this weekend. Not all of them are going to live up to expectations or even meet expectations. So the question is going to be, do any of them soar? Do any of them bottom out? We will not know, of course, until Sunday. With that said, a quick reminder of everything that we've already done here on the show and everything that is still to come. We had your WWE episode on Tuesday. On Wednesday, we gave you ultimate previews for NXT Heatwave and AAA Ola de Calor. Of course, this was your AEW All In London Ultimate Preview. And then on Sunday, we will have not one, but 2 episodes of performance-enhancing audio making their way into your ear holes. One of them, of course, your AEW All In instant analysis. The other, your NXT Heatwave and AAA Ola de Calor instant analysis. In terms of order of operations, I do not know which one is going to come first, but you will get both of them on Sunday, one way or another. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast if you have not already, and there are a variety of ways that you can do it. First, you can remember to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast. On Twitter and Blue Sky, you get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show. On YouTube, you can listen. You can watch full-length video interviews. If you hit the link in our profile, you can subscribe to us wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also join our free Slack channel and talk about wrestling all weekend and pretty much every other week long. Join our Slack channel. It's great. All filled with Getting Overheads. Vintage and the Silver King both contribute as well. Find us on social media at Getting Overcast. And lastly, please do not forget,
It's all about the five.
head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review if you do. We will read it live right here on the show. Thanks to Vintage Chris Vanini for joining this AEW All In Ultimate Preview for Vintage. This is the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, signing off and leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.